What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the Uncommon Mindset podcast. Today, I'm joined by a very, very special guest. Today, I'm joined by Kris Paronto, also known as Tanto. And an
Yeah.
Kris is an American author, a businessman, a former US Army Ranger, and CIA security contractor. Kris is known for his actions while part of the CIA annex security team during the 2012 terrorist attack on the US ambassador to Libya and the CIA compound in Benghazi. What an honor it is to have you on the podcast today,
Oh,
Kris.
thanks, brother, and thanks for working the bugs out. I'm getting us connected. And I know what time is it where you're at? Is it like
Uh,
7, 8 o'clock?
6 p.m. 6 p.m.
Oh, it's still early, man. But you're
Yeah,
missing. Wait, I can't remember because you're in the UK, aren't you?
yeah,
Aren't
that's
you?
correct. Yeah.
Do they have happy hour or is it happy hour all? I can't remember. Is it happy hour all the time?
It's
It is,
it's
isn't
happy
it?
hour all the time, but yeah, usually around 6 p.m. Yeah.
All right. So we'll finish this up. You could go to happy hour and have
Oh
a good
no,
time, man.
I got training, so I have to go
Oh, you
training. Yeah, I do mixed
okay?
martial arts.
Oh,
Yeah.
that well, I figured. No, I figured because that was your background, and I'm not saying that you got punched in the face a few, but it looks like you got punched a few times, man. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
And that, but you're still a good-looking cat, bro. You're not got a
Oh,
great. You're still good. But that's
stop it.
no, dude. That's dedication right there, bro. I tell you, I remember when I used to have that dedication back in my. I would say, are you like 27 or 28? Is that
Yeah,
how
I'm
old are you?
26. Yeah.
26, yeah. I used to have that dedication too. Nah, man. Nah, no more
Ah, you're
training. True.
you're still young, Kris. You're still young.
Yeah, thanks, bro. Well, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
No, of course, no worries. Obviously, I really want to touch on the whole, 13 hours, the thing that
Sure,
happened in Benghazi. But
sure.
before we do that, I do want to take it back because, I know that you've been involved in the military, over
Yeah,
10,
yeah,
15 years, right?
yeah, yeah.
So the question I have for you, Kris, is like, when and why did you get involved in the military?
The military actually found me, bro. I didn't. I wasn't. Yeah, as a kid, I was a typical, living out in the country kid. I love playing with my little Hot Wheels and my Matchbox airplanes, and playing. You did like a kids do. Like, and I wish we still did. We used to play war, cowboys and Indians, and so forth. And so I grew up rugged in the country, and so I knew what it was. And being an Army guy, GI Joe was even still, it was still a big thing back then, even though it grew. But back then it was the simple GI Joe times, and so I was around it, but I never wanted to, never was like, oh, I got to join the military. My grandfather was military, my father was military. It wasn't any of that, even though my grandfather on my dad's side was in the Army Air Corps. I never knew him. He died before I was born. I never got to know him.
Yeah.
So and it wasn't big military in the family. I had a cousin that was a cousin that was the Navy and a cousin that was in the Marines, but it wasn't, hey, let's join the military. And I don't know. I was always very competitive. I played sports through college. I mean, through high school, I played sports in college. That's how I paid for college. I had a football scholarship, so I played for college football. And I knew that wasn't good. I'm not going to the pros. Honestly, I kind of got burnt out, to be honest with you. And
Mm.
not that I was good enough to go play in the pros anyway, but it was one of those things where I was college. I knew athletics for me was kind of done. I was like, I'm done. There's no pro going on. I really don't want to go, even if I had the opportunity to. That's not what I wanted to do. And an Army recruiter saw me in the college, the little college student area where they were doing a job fair. And he just picked me out of a crowd, man. Or maybe he just yelled, and I'm the only one that turned around and looked. I think that's what happened. And he said, "Hey, you," and I'm the only idiot that actually looked at him. And it was an Army recruiter here and a Navy recruiter here. And then you had the Marine recruiter, you had an Air Force recruiter, but those were the two that I don't know if they were. I focused on those two, and I saw a Navy SEAL video and I saw an Army Ranger video. The actual recruiting video, the cool used car salesman jumping at airplanes, diving in the ocean, blowing stuff up, shooting guns, all the cool stuff that you get to do, but they don't show you the crappy stuff that goes with, all the hazing and the vetting and all the vetting processes, the tryouts that go with it. And not eating, not sleeping, getting hazed, which it's essential. Hazing is essential. I think we need to haze more, honestly. I think society would be a lot tougher. But but I thought the the Rangers to me looked harder, and I'm not knocking the SEALs, even though we make fun of each other. To me, it just like, man, that looks tougher to me. And there's going to be arguments, and SEALs that watch this are going to say, oh, you're a shithead, Tanto. SEALs are way tougher, but I'm not trying to get in a competition here. It was just what I saw on the recruiting video.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, yeah, I asked the recruiter, I go, is it tough? He says, yeah. I go, do people quit? He goes, oh yeah, we lose more than half. I'm like, well, that's what I want to do. And the kind was just in history. It's kind of like UFC fighting. You do it because it's fun but it's a challenge, and it's something that, hey, this is not everybody can do this. So that's how I looked at it. And it was pretty tough. And that was where the journey started right there. And graduated from college, went and told my parents that I was going to join the Army after I had my bachelor's degree. So they thought I was an idiot, because like, what? Well, why'd you waste 4 years of college and now you're going to go enlist in the Army? But I'm glad I did. It actually prepared me, and it does help. And so I tell youngsters going to join the military, go to college and get your degree, because it may not help in the beginning, maybe the first 2 years when you're a private, but when you make your sergeant rank or you get your NCO ranks, it does help to have that degree. And there is a sense of maturity a little bit. You're a little bit more mature than the guys. So the rest of the people there that just haven't gone to college. And to be honest with you, the majority of the guys that I served with, not all of them, but the majority of them, they felt like they missed something in college, so they ended up getting out after 4 years anyway and going back to college. So it's like, well, just get it knocked out of the way and then use your GI Bill. And I used my GI Bill for my master's degree later, but it just was one of those things where, it just was kind of just fell in my lap. And I guess, I'm a Christian. I'm a terrible Christian, but I am a Christian, awful. But I do my best. I believe in God. I believe that there's some higher power. I tell people, don't if you don't believe in God, that's fine, but believe in something. There is a higher power out there. But I, being a Christian, I was like, well, I guess that's the route I'm supposed to go. So let's do it. And it was that the rest is, like I said, the rest is history.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. And I know that, the training must have been so tough to get into, the Rangers, right? So why do you think that they make the training as hard as it is?
Well, I even think, and even basic training, because I went through basic training twice. A lot of people don't know that I got kicked out of the military the first time I was in, and I had to redo everything. I went back in and redid it twice. In 1999, I re-enlisted, and so why I'm putting that out there is because back in 95, basic training was tough. They were still putting hands on guys. They were still, the first day I was there, a drill sergeant did a Lawrence Taylor to a kid that was smarting off to him, and the kid flew. It was unbelievable. It reminded me of Full Metal Jacket. I was like, holy shit, I didn't think they could still do this. That was my mindset, was like, my butthole went like to pucker factor 10, and I went, oh my gosh, the recruiter said they don't beat us anymore, and this kid got beat. But why I'm saying that is because if you can't, and of course, then you go to airborne school, which isn't really that hard. Airborne school just it hurts because you fall all the time. Ranger indoctrination, which is going to join the 75th Ranger Regiment, that is tough. That's hazing. That is physical torture, but you're also learning a lot. You're learning Ranger history, and then going to Ranger Battalion as a private is even awful. I mean, it's just because you're a peon for however many years before you even get to Ranger school, and then you got to go to Ranger school, and that's where you start to make rank after you complete Ranger school, and that's where you starve, and that's where you're up all the time, and for at minimum 3 months. If you go straight through, you're up, you're getting no sleep, no food, losing a ton of weight. I lost 35 pounds, and I went in at 165, and I still came out at 130. But the reason, and now being able to do a lot of deployments and do combat deployments, per se, to Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya and Yemen and even South America, even fighting pirates off the coast of Somalia. If you don't get that hazing, you don't get that tough training, you're not going to weed out the people that are going to fail you in combat. you have to have that. If you don't have the pressure and you don't make it so only the cream of the crop make it, and I'm going to say that people getting pissed off or not, but the top tier make it. When bullets start flying, that person that you didn't weed out is going to fail you. They're going to quit. They're going to either run for cover. They're not going to do their job because they're not going to be thinking correctly, or they're going to make a huge mistake. And I always said, if you can't take the hazing, you can't take the hard training, the vetting processes that go through, not just the physical stuff, but even just even the qualifications. You got to be able to shoot. You got to be able to road march. You got to be able to land nav. You got to be able to, you got to know how to slide down a rope, out of a helicopter and be able to roll out of it so your buddy doesn't jam his 240 Bravo in the back of your skull because you're just laying there on the ground. If you can't handle and deal with all the training, when the crap hits the fan and your team really needs you, you're going to fail them. And that's going to cause lives. People are going to die. That's why I at the beginning, I was kind of being funny with it, but I am very serious. That's why I believe that hazing and hard training is essential, because that's what saved lives. The old adage of the more you bleed in training, the less you bleed in war. That's true. Or the more you sweat in training, the less you bleed in war. For everybody that maybe thinks that's too mean to say, we don't everybody wants anybody to die in training, but you want to make training so difficult, so hard that not everybody can do it. And those that can move on to that next level. So if you're ever in that situation that you're in a gunfight, maybe even a sustained gunfight, or you're caught off guard because, our enemies aren't dumb. They're good at what they do too. Yeah. If you ever caught off guard, can you fight through that adversity and still win? Which essentially it's not just the winning part. Winning means guys are getting to go home to their families. Lives are saved. So yeah, that's why, bro, you have to keep that training tough. And I think the military in America, I don't know if it, I don't know in the UK, because I think it's I don't know. I'm just not in the UK, but I do think I've served and worked with Royal Marines, MI5, SAS guys, SBS guys. Those guys are tough as nails, hardcore. I don't know if the training, because of the political correctness, has been diluted in the UK, but I can't tell you here, at least in the States, yeah, it has. It has. Special operations, not so much, but the regular Army, yeah, because we're more concerned with not hurting people's feelings and making sure there's diversity and all this other. And there's always been diversity in the Army, brother. I mean, the Army is the most diverse place there it's ever been, even when I was in. I'm Mexican. Boone, that served with me in Benghazi, people don't know it. He's black. He's African American. I mean, that we've got ethnicities and cultures and everything all over the military. But to me, we've made it so much more as a political statement of this diversity we don't have in the military, which it's always been there. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We haven't really focused on what is really important, and that's battle readiness. That's combat readiness. That's getting the people with the most mental toughness and the intestinal fortitude in those positions that you want to protect this nation, my nation, United States. Like I said, I don't know if in the UK it's gotten like that. I would probably say within your SF community, your SAS guys, your SBS guys, probably not, because the guys I've been around, at least that I know that are in that community, they really don't complain about it as much as we do. Or maybe we're just Americans and we just like to complain about shit. Maybe that's it. I don't know. No. But yeah, bro, but it's extremely important. And that's why, I think that's also when we talk about combatives now, in the US military, it's transitioned to more of a UFC combatives, ground up, down, and it's tough. And I remember Ranger Battalion, I was very blessed at the time. The Gracies were the big thing in UFC. That's how old I am. This was UFC 1, 2, 3, Shamrock Gracies, wow. Back chemo with this freaking thing that Gracie. Yeah. But that being said, I was very blessed because during my time in the 90s when I was in, the combatives was transitioning from the old Sykes Fairbairn stand, which is still, hey, there's still good things you can learn from that stuff. Mm-hmm. But it was transitioning to more of a combative, full on ground up down fighting, and the Gracies were a big part of that because we got to get cross trained with the Gracie family. They would Ranger Battalion was one of the first ones to start to implement the ground fighting stuff. So, and that was part of the hazing process too. That was part of going in the morning, PT, what are we doing? All right, we're doing fighting today. We're doing combatives. And it was for PT all morning, guys beating the living crap out of each other. And trying moves on each other that we had no business knowing how to do. So a lot of dislocated shoulders, a lot of broken wrists, and because guys weren't really knowing how to do all the wrists. But the whole adage wasn't to move correctly. It was eventually, but in the beginning, the purpose wasn't to really do the move correctly. It was just to see who could take the pain and still be able to train the rest of the week. And I still believe, even though it may have been a little unethical, but hey, you're in the Army, man. You signed your name on the dotted line. That's it. The Army's got you. You ain't got no rights. As much as we in America like to say, we got rights in the Army. No. The Army owns you. And when you go to Ranger Battalion, the Rangers own you. You ain't have no rights. And we understand that. So, to say that we should have gotten down and gotten the gist of the moves. No. We wanted just to be able to beat each other up and to see who could withstand that beating and continue to drive on, because that was the rest of the week to get into training. Because to me, a guy that could sustain that, even if he lost every combatives fight at PT in the morning, but still kept fighting, you knew that guy was going to be right next to you unless his leg or his arms or something blew off him and he just couldn't move. And that meant a lot. So yeah, it's extremely, it's the beginning. It's extremely important to keep that fighting spirit in the military. And that's also what kept me in it. That's what drew me to it. That's why I stayed in it so long, because it was always, to me, every day was a test. Every day was a tryout. And that's what gets a lot of people to quit it too. And it's fine, or finish their tour and say, I'm done, because you're really never not training. You're really never not trying out when you join the Rangers or the SEALs or pararescue or Special Operations Aviation Regiment or Special Forces or British SAS, or there's every day is still a tryout day, and that can cause a lot of stress. But it's what you sign up for. And if you can't handle that stress, when that bullet cracks by your head as it's breaking the sound barrier, you're not going to be able to handle that stress. But that's what I loved about it, and that's honestly why I miss it. I do miss it. I'm not going to say I don't, but I do. I miss that. I miss being around guys I could depend on in the worst case scenario. I may not want to hang out with them all the time, but I could depend on them in the worst case scenario. And that always made you feel, confident. And it made you feel safe. Even in the worst case, worst things, worst times, you're like, well, shit, I got some pipe hitters next to me. We're going to win this fight. And it made you feel confident. It was a good feeling.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like that saying. It's like you don't race to the occasion, you fall back on your training.
Yeah,
right?
you do. And we say it, hey, you fall back on your highest level of training. When the crap hits the fan, you fall back to your training. If your training was here, that's what you're going to fall back onto. If you need it to be up here and you've only trained to here, you're not going to get up to here. You're going to fall back on that highest level of training. And we still believe that. And that's still something that's taught and hammered into people within the military, especially the special operations community today. Yeah. And I think, that UFC and the combatives environment is that same exact way. That's why I think it meshes so well. And that's why, we have friends within the special operations community and also the UFC community. Andre Arlovsky is a very good friend, one of the toughest, biggest dude. I love that guy. Yeah. But I think there is even though he's never served in the military, there is that respect for one another, because I know that, he's a tough son of a bitch, and I know he can take the pain. And I also think that's why Tim Kennedy, not that I'm buddies with Tim, I do know, Tim and I would say are more social media buddies than anything else. But that's why he did well within the UFC confines, is because it really was an easy transition for him, because he already was performing at a high level. Well, as to him, I'm not going to speak for him, but I would think if I was in his shoes, this was, that looks tough. Let's go give it a try and see how it is. And if I get beat up a little bit, well, okay, well, I've been getting beat up already. So what's the difference? Maybe I'll get paid a little bit more for it. So there is a healthy respect for at least the U.S. Army, and especially from the special operations community, and also within the combatives community, which we definitely have taken a lot of that training on, and I believe in probably more so today with the younger guys since I'm out now, taking that on and seeing that as being an important element for the vetting process, and also just to be battle ready, is that combatives environment that you guys are perfecting and changing and re-perfecting every day.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, 100%. And you mentioned Tim Kennedy there. I absolutely love Tim Kennedy. He's such a legend. Yeah. So, yeah. So Kris, so okay. So you basically joined, and then you got deployed to different places,
Yeah.
and then the Libya thing happened, right?
Yeah, the
So
Benghazi,
yeah, the Benghazi thing. So I absolutely loved the movie 13 Hours.
Like,
And I just want to say, is because I know you guys were close to the director, right? So is
Michael,
everything, yeah, so is everything you see in the movie as accurate as it is in real life?
and that's a good question, and I'm glad, because I think people feel that Hollywood does sometimes bastardize movies, or they over embellish movies, and there is some of that within all. I think with all war movies, whether it be Black Hawk Down, Lone Survivor, American Sniper, especially, um, Hurt Locker, which EOD guys are not snipers. That's never going to happen. But there is on all of them a lot of realism, and they are quite accurate, especially the feelings that you get that the guys are going through that evening, just the personal and the personal relationships. But I do believe with ours, yeah, Michael Bay we actually, Michael Bay became very close to all of us at the time. I don't have a relationship with him now. In fact, I don't have a relationship with anybody in Hollywood except for little Pablo. I'm still friends with the guy that played me.
He played
Great
amazing
guy. No,
job.
he's a great guy. He's a great
Yeah.
guy. Yeah. But when the movie came out, or when we were in talks to do the movie, we were heavily involved with the whole process. In fact, we got to talk to a few of the directors, and they took our input of like, hey, who do you guys like? And we all liked him. I'll be honest, I was a little skeptical at first with Michael Bay, because I loved his movies, but Transformers, the most recent ones, the Transformers movies, a lot of CGI, a lot of fictionalization, even though it does have still, even in Transformers, a heavy military element, because he loves military. He really does. He loves the military, and you can see it when you go to his houses. There's no movie awards on his walls. It's all accommodations from military groups that he's used in his movies that are like those are all over his walls. But talking to him, I really got the sense that he was the guy, and we all did. It's like, yeah, we love this guy. And I remember what I said to him. Because at the time I was a little bit more politically outspoken then. I'm not anymore. I don't get into politics at all anymore. It's just that politics is sickening to me. I know politics is a bunch of horse shit now, buddy. But I do remember, and this is what sold me with him. We were sitting in like Miami somewhere. He has one of his 8 million houses. He's got a house in Miami, and but we went and met him to have dinner. It was the first time we met with him personally. We talked to him on Skype, and that's how old we are again. Skype. It wasn't FaceTime, and it was actually Skyping. And I remember we went to the restaurant. We're talking to him. Great guy. I mean, he's all over the place. So he really is. I don't know what he's on, but he never stops talking. He's more animated than me, and that's saying something. But I remember I said, hey, this movie's going to have a lot of, this story is going to have a lot of political blowback. I go, with the election coming up, and it's going to hurt Hillary Clinton's, which I don't care for that woman at all. I don't care for either. I said, Hillary Clinton and Obama, this isn't going to put him in good lights. And, I go, sir, I don't care. I really don't care for either of them. He goes, and remember, and he probably will never admit this, but I'll tell you what he said. He goes, fuck them. Excuse my language. He goes, fuck them. I don't care. He says, I want to make a movie. And honestly, that's what sold me right there. It's like, okay, this is our guy. Yeah. And I don't think our choice made the producers' decisions, the people that were putting money behind it. I mean, I think they maybe took it maybe about that much of our input into it. I think they already had in mind of using Michael Bay, but I'm glad they did. And we were part of the script writing with with Chuck Hogan. And for those who don't know Chuck Hogan's a huge author, script writer, and Emmy award-winning script writer for movies. Yeah, and people that don't know Chuck Hogan. So we were very blessed to have a guy of that stature to be writing the script. But even with him, it was like, here's the script, read it, tell me what if there's anything we need to change in it. So it wasn't, yeah, that was what was so cool. And Chuck's a great guy. I met Chuck. Chuck's an awesome guy, nicest guy in the world. And then going into Bay Studios and reading the script together and just telling him, hey, Tig would be in a spot that Roan was at. They were trying to change it up a bit just to make the characters, to them, it was they fit better in these spots. And we're like, no, that's not how it was. He was here. These guys were talking, not these. So it was like Roan and Tig were talking, not Oz and Tanto, and they changed it. They fixed it all. It was like it wasn't just blowing us off, and it wasn't on the phone either. We were in the studios. They had to change it. We're sitting there making the changes with everybody together, and then helping to find. Well, it was kind of cool because they, Michael Bay and Bay Studios, it's pretty cool place, and he's got all the movie gadgets. Like it'd be like me walking into a tactical operations center, and I, as a ranger, and having every little gadget I could have at my disposal in this big computer room. Well, he's got the same thing in the movie room. So we walk in there, the movie room, and where he's like, well, we need to find a place in the world that the annex, you can find a neighborhood where the annex looks exactly the same as it did in Benghazi, because we can't go back to Benghazi. He says, and also we need to do our best to find what the consulate looks like. So, because we're not going to build the sets, we're going to actually go to these countries and we're going to film it in the country. So we need to make sure that the less building, the better, because of a budget, budget. He said, we just can't go to other countries and start building stuff up. He says, we don't have that kind of budget anyway. And yeah, let's go sitting in there and doing Google Earth. And he already had some places in mind. So we're looking in Malta, we're looking in Morocco, and honestly, it was easy. Malta's a little island. I don't know if you know geography. It's right off the coast of Libya. It's right there. And it's very, it's very open. It's very westernized, more so than it's like Vegas on an island. I mean, it really is. Still some cool history there. But we found a neighborhood, and we found a compound that was identical to our annex, the layout. So when you watch the movie, the layout, it's exactly, I was like, holy crap, that is exactly how the buildings were. And we went, and then exactly how the buildings were, exactly with the little turtle garden. We had little turtles in Benghazi, and those were our pets, and having a little turtle garden. And even to find the praying mantis, if you watch the movie, we had a praying mantis. That was one of the, it was huge, man. He sat right outside the little fly jar that we had, and he would catch flies. And his gut was, I mean, I swear he was that big around, that long. But I mean, just to have that in the movie, that's the detail of how awesome it was. It wasn't just the combat scenes, and the combat scenes were pretty awesome. Yeah. They're pretty accurate, man. They're pretty spot on. But it was those little things like the praying mantis and the catching flies, and us talking to our families on Skype, which all that banter that you have in the movie, that actually happened. And the little rabbit where I'm showing my wife how fat, yeah, that's me. That's what I would do, and that's what I did. And my wife even laughed at it, and but then even the conversations up on the rooftops, like warriors aren't trained to retire. Well, that's kind of how we all felt, and that's Roan felt that way immensely. It's like it's hard to leave that life, is what we were trying to do. Yeah. So being on set also, so we did, and we went on set. Long story short, yeah, I've already made it long enough, but we went on set, and so we each took turns in Malta for about 3 weeks at a time. I worked with Pablo. Pablo and I actually became, as soon as I found out he was the producers told me that he was going to play me. Him and I started a relationship on social media, as far as just talking to each other. And then then eventually we hung out, went to the range a few times, went to the gym a few times to hang out, and then just became friends, just talking on the phone. And he did a very excellent job. And even all the tattoos were spot on. I mean, all those tattoos, I mean, I was like, wow, those are better than the ones I even have on me. They did a great job. But getting that down. And then, but like I tell people, and this is one thing I think I learned just from that brief time, and I could be wrong, but that brief time of being part of that movie, which was an experience in itself, it really was.
Yeah.
It's that if you don't have it all set in stone, it's like preparation, it's like training before a fight. If you haven't prepared, once you get to do the filming, so if you haven't got the script right, you haven't got you haven't got the characters right of how they need to act, and as far as our guys tactically move, and they did a great job getting those. We had other GRS guys and ourselves teaching them how to move correctly, and they got that spot on. I mean, they really nailed those tactical movements. But getting that correct, getting the way Rangers speak versus the difference between SEALs speak, but also the way I speak compared to how other Rangers, getting all that right. That's the training. If you don't have that prepared before the big game or the big fight, which is the filming's not going to mean shit.
Yeah.
And that's why once we got on set, there was a couple corrections that we had to make. There was one that we did, I remember, and this is on set one time where Pablo, Rangers, when we shoot machine guns, especially with charging handles, when you have your charging off to the side, it's never palm down. That's Rangers. No, you would get smoked. You were going to get hazed and smoked, physically beat down if you rack your charging handle on a machine gun palm down. Well, one of this where I got hit with that RPG and it knocked me off the wall, and then I started shooting. When we did that in the movie, and he did a great job showing all that, blowing it up, and he's shooting. Well, as he ran back to that first position where they were starting to peel back, he got down and he went, and I was standing, and that's in the movie. I'm actually standing right off camera because I'm watching it all. Because Michael's like, "Hey, watch this and tell me what you think." Yeah. They got done with the set. I don't have the authority to say cut. They finished the set. And I walk over to Pablo, and I talked to Pablo about that. So he already knew. And I go, "Dude, where was your hand?" And right when I said it, he goes, "Oh, fuck." He goes, "It was down, wasn't it?" My palm. I go, "Yeah." He went up to Mike. He goes, "We got to do that scene again." He goes, "My hand was in the wrong position." I walked up to Michael, and I said, "Hey, nobody's really going to notice it except for a bunch of Rangers watching it. And then they're going to walk out of the movie." He goes, "Yep." And that was all I had to say. And they redid the scene. And so they did it right, and so that was how I think how important it was to them just to get it right. But it also showed, whether it was intentional or not, the respect they gave to us and making sure that it was correct. And I also knew, I also believe that they thought, it was going to be dragged through the mud politically back and forth. So they wanted to get it as accurate as possible. So, terrible, like magazines like the Vox, and which is I don't see how that thing is still operating, but magazines like that were big Hillary Clinton supporters that don't support anything but their own agendas, they were going to hammer it if they saw things that were wrong. So we were trying to make it as accurate as possible, because we knew magazines like the Vox and Rolling Stone and other things like that were going to, whether it was great or not, they were going to find every little thing wrong with it. So we wanted to make sure everything that we had control of, we could get it right and accurate as possible. And we did. And man, the personal scenes, the rooftop scenes, the Jack finding out the first time his wife was pregnant, and that actually happened. And that was pretty traumatic for him. The tree cut down. Even the conversation with his wife saying, "Hey, I'll cut down the tree." That his wife was worried about that. It's like they were worried about how much it was going to cost to cut the tree down, and also the real estate. Why he was contracted again? Well, the real estate market was terrible for him. He lost a lot of money, so that's why he came back over. Well, we put that in there because that's not just problems that we had, but that's problems all the contractors, everybody that was a contractor for either the CIA or if you're doing other contracts out there. Those personal things, that's just part of being a part of life, and that's part of the things you have to deal with when you're on a deployment as a contractor, as a military contractor. We want to make sure all that was in there, because those things, I think, take a toll on your psyche and your mindset just as much as not dying. Making sure you don't die, and it shows the humanism of really what contractors are. All the guys I work with, all of us, the family, and how important the family is, and how the family is still a huge part of your life, even when you're overseas, even when you're not with them. In fact, they're more so, because you can't do anything when there's a problem. And it's like, man, okay, I got to figure this out. And even him running down to hit send when he did that video. I remember that. I remember him calling on the radio. He goes, I'm moving from my position. Backside's going to be unclear. I got to go hit send on my video. I got to go send my wife a video. That wasn't movie magic. He did that. I just remember the radio. I was like, hey man, somebody cover my sector. I got to go send my video. And I was like, Roger, go send your video. And I remember looking at Boone and said, what the fuck is he talking about? But I didn't argue with him. I was like, I got a sector. He got down the stairs, hit send, ran back up. But you know, it reminds me of those things when the movie plays, because that's what it's really like, man. Not just the bravado, just the little stuff, the daily grind and the humanity that we still go through. Even though a lot of people think we're mindless robots that have no humanity. In fact, I would say argue it's just the opposite. I think we have more humanity than most, because we know what life and death really is. When you take a life, you realize how delicate life can be. And when you see a friend's life taken in front of your face, and it goes like that, you realize how quickly, you know, you can leave this earth, man. But that night, especially when that happened, and it happened to me after those mortars attacked, I remember watching Roan get hit and getting blown up. I saw it, you know, through my night vision, the white, and I said, you know, and they were still getting attacked. You couldn't stop. You had to keep fighting. But it's full circle. Well, why the hell do you think you need hazing and hard training, and you got to get pushed to your limits? And some people aren't going to make it, and some people are going to quit, and you're going to get hurt, and you're going to just be pushed to your limits. Well, so when you see your buddy get blown up in front of your face, you keep fighting. You can't quit. That's the movie. That's why you asked about the movie. The movie caught all that. Mm. And that's why I think and I know I'm being biased, but I still think it's the best movie by far. I don't think there's a close second. Black Hawk Down, maybe I'm Ranger biased now, because and I do have buddies from Black Hawk Down, Dale Sizemore, David Ford, and Colonel McKnight are Ranger buddies of mine. And I know they went through hell as well. But yeah, because they got all the personal stuff as well as the combat stuff. And Michael Bay did an excellent job. And Pablo, like I said, Pablo did an excellent job. And you know, what is he now? He's now Master Chief in Halo. So obviously he's digging the military, whatever form of military combat, Den of Thieves, where he's the Marine robber, and now he's Halo. Yeah, he's digging being the combat guy, and he's good at it. He really is good at it. So
no, yeah. It's amazing to hear that you say that, you know, nearly everything in the movie is accurate, because when I was watching it, I was like, this is the craziest thing. Like, it's one of my favorite movies for sure. Hands down. That, Lone Survivor, like you said, Black Hawk Down, all them are my favorites. Yeah, sorry guys. Basically, Kris was busy yesterday and I had to go training, so we're just carrying on with the podcast today. So the question I had for you, Kris, basically I mentioned that in the film 13 Hours, it's line 30, I believe. You and one of the guys are watching.
I remember.
Movie. And then you get a call saying, we need you guys, and then you get another call saying, no, we need you guys right now. So I just asked, like, what was going through your mind at that moment?
Sure. Here, and sorry for the flashes, guys. I'm trying to, my TV's off and now it's all dark, so I'm trying to get the light correct since I'm in a different area of the house. No, that's how we were talking yesterday. And I know we were watching, Battleship and Wrath of Titans were the two movies that were on, me and Boone were watching it. And we were just relaxing. If you've seen 13 Hours, there's a scene where Roan says, hey, Roan says, hey, three of us extended. Well, that was myself, Boone, and Roan. We were actually supposed to go home 2 weeks before the attack, because our deployment had ended, our trip had ended. And we all had stayed longer because the ambassador was coming into Benghazi. Even though he wasn't really our responsibility, we knew, just a gut feeling that they were going to need us. Not that they were going to get attacked. It was just, State Department really doesn't know the city like we do, because they just don't get out like we do. They're not allowed to get out and live on the economy. They're not allowed to get out and go to the restaurants and go to the souks and get immersed in the culture, get immersed in the city. So we're like, yeah, let's stay longer. because they're going to need our help. And we knew the ambassador was a huge target. I mean, I worked with State Department for many years, and State Department has different levels of ambassadorship. You can either give to a Democratic or Republican party and become an ambassador of an island off of Switzerland, or you can actually work and be a actual diplomat in the Foreign Service Division, where you are an actual ambassador that actually does something. At least in their heads, they're doing something for the good of the country and the good of the world. I mean, let's just call them, they're the ones that actually are doing the work. They're not getting, and the Ambassador Stevens was like that. So he was like, man, this guy's coming in. This would be a feather in any terrorist cap to capture him or kill him. And he's coming in with no security. And he normally had a security team, which was a special forces team. It was 10 Special Forces Group, the SIF team, the Commanders and Extremist Force, that actually was his protective security detail. And for some reason, Hillary Clinton and two others that got away scot-free, the undersecretary, Patrick Kennedy, who was a complete tool. The dude's awful. That dude should be in prison. And Charlene Lamb, another one that should be in prison. Two of Hillary Clinton's undersecretaries had decided, well, we're going to pull, Ambassador Stevens' security team, we're going to pull them out of the country. So what I'm getting at is that we found that out. So we're like, yeah, we better stay. So going back to that night at 9:30, me and Boone were just biding time, we should be home. And I don't know anybody that's been on a deployment when you've stayed longer and the original date that you should be home, you're still in country. You're just kind of getting through the day. You're like, oh shit, I should be home already. So that's all we're doing. We're just biding time. And we've done it before. So all you do is you just try to keep yourself busy, try to watch movies. If you have work to do, go do work. And him and I were on QRF anyway that night, which we're on the Quick Reaction Force, which there's always two of us that always are on standby if something happens to a team out in town. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're just chilling. We're just, all right, let's watch a movie. He's sitting there watching his gun porn because he always does gun searches on his, not actual porn, but gun porn. He's always looking at guns and articles and things. I'm watching the movie. And yeah, it was very, very relaxing, just trying to get through the night, thinking, okay, let's just get this night over with, because then it's closer to us going home. But when we got the call, it was around, I still think it was 9:32. I know there's been other reports of that. Even the movie said around 9:37. I remember looking at my watch. It was just an old $20 Timex watch, and it said 9:32 when the call came in. And it was from our GRS team leader, who, again, we talked a little bit on the past podcast about how we didn't really portray him in the movie, but he's in our book. He was the actual staffer that was in charge of us. And he had no military experience, no combat experience, nothing. He was a former Secret Service guy that just checked fraud, and he did great that night because he stayed out of the way. It's just like this. But Roan was our actual team leader. That's why in the movie we say Roan is our team leader, because he's the guy we listen to. But anyway, we got a call from our GRS team leader. And so the GRS team leader says, GRS, we need you in the team room. And it was a very nonchalant call. It wasn't like a sense of urgency in the voice. It wasn't, hey, there's an attack going on, get here now. It was, hey guys, we need you in the team room. So Boone looked at me and he just said to me, he goes, what'd you do now? I was like, man, I ain't done nothing, man. I've been good all night. And if you've seen the movie, you would get that. Or if you've read the book, you'd understand it, because I was an asshole to the CIA case officers. I did. I thought, we talked about the hazing and all that I think is necessary. They got none of this. Most of them were college kids that were very, very bright, coming out of Ivy League colleges, but they got no common sense. They got no street smarts. They've never been hazed in their life, except maybe if they've joined a fraternity at their college, and so to me, I felt it was my responsibility to make fun of it. And that was an arrogant way of me, I think. And I was younger then too. So I made some mistakes, but to me, it was my responsibility to just make fun of them and haze them, not in a physical way, but just pick at them to see if they could take the little jokes that went on. And so that's why Boone says, Tanto, what'd you do now? Because every time I would do it, it'd get us in trouble. It'd get all the GRS guys in trouble. So it was pain, it was group pain, which I know you've probably been part of that before. You're in training and one guy keeps screwing up. So to teach that one guy a lesson, everybody's got to deal with the pain, because that's just, it creates good cohesion within the team too, because you're sucking together, but guys at that point in their careers, all of us were senior guys. They were over that, and they knew they were over my antics. They hated it because I always got us in trouble. So it was like, "What'd you do now?" And I was like, "Dude, I ain't done nothing. I hadn't. I've been a good. I just wanted to go home. I didn't want anybody. I didn't want any drama. I wasn't trying to cause any drama. I didn't want any drama at that point in time, at that deployment. But then 30 seconds later, we did get a very, very urgent call, and it wasn't what was said. It was just the tone. And I equate it to, if you ever get a phone call from a loved one or a friend, or if you are working in law enforcement or you have been in the military, you just know by that tone of the voice that something is wrong. It was our GRS team leader again. He goes, "GRS, we need you in the team room now." And he said it that now. I remember the hair on the back of my neck stood up, not in a bad way. Like I said, I've been through a lot at that point. So I understood, I accepted that, we could die tonight. It wasn't that I wanted, but it's just one of those things. It's just the realism of it, that, hey, there's something that could happen tonight that could get one of us killed, but hey, this is our job. Earlier in my career, I probably would have had more butterflies in my stomach, which I did. More of the, oh shit, I'm shitting myself. At that point in time, I've been deploying for 10 years at that point. I've been going, not just serving, but actually going back to Iraq, Afghanistan, and all these places for 10 years. And the whole team had that seniority as well, that I would say none of us, the butterflies get going, but it's like being a seasoned fighter. I would equate it to that. When you're that first fight you ever do, you're a little bit more amped up, maybe even a little bit more scared, even though as we don't want to say we're scared, but you are a little bit more scared or a little bit more terrified at the beginning, to where 10 years and you've been fighting, you're like, okay, I'm getting amped up, but you know what to expect. So it's a different, the adrenaline's there, but you handle the adrenaline differently. You know how to deal with it. And that's how it was. So it was like, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask, were you looking at it like, oh, here we go, we're going back to work again? Or were you happy? Like, what? I'm not, I know that you obviously weren't happy, were you? Or
actually, no. And you're not being offensive saying that. And I think people think that you're being offensive. That's why I tell people, no, of course I was. I mean, it's like, this is actually what Boone said. And I think this answers your question from our conversation. He looks at me and he goes, "We're going to do something fun tonight." I mean, he looked at me and smiled. He smiled at me, and I knew what he was thinking. And I said to him, "We could do something fun tonight." And, it's like, I played college football. I played high school sports, baseball, basketball. I did everything. It's like, you get to go to your game. Now it's time to play your game. So that's where the realism comes in, and the acceptance of, as long as you're doing the right thing. And I said this, it was in the movie, and I said it. I said, as long as you're doing the right thing, God will take care of you. So the fear wasn't there of, I'm going to die. There's the possibility of it, but the adrenaline kicks in, and it's business. It's okay. It's time to go to work, and being able to control that adrenaline to where it doesn't overcome you, which comes with experience, hazing, hard training, going through stuff like Ranger School, being a private at Ranger Battalion, and then just multiple deployments, and seeing, and honestly seeing death and experiencing that, and then getting up the next day and you're still alive. You understand that, death happens, but life still goes on. And so you're able to accept it. But also the biggest thing is that it's your job. Hey, this is what we're here for, So, and then what also helps is having a team of guys that I felt comfortable with. I didn't like them all. I think there's a misnomer there too. Me and Oz didn't like each other. I didn't really care for him. We still don't like each other, but I knew he was competent and I could trust him in his job. And I knew that he just like I was able to do, we put our petty differences aside because the job was more important than the petty differences. Yeah. So,
you all seem like leaders. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, and that was it. And that has a lot to do with just age and experience. All of us were in our 40s, except for Tig, but Tig was still pretty old. He was 39. I was 44 at the time. Roan was 45. Jack was 41. Oz was 47. Boone was the same age as me. 44. Hold on. No, I'm sorry. We were 42. I'm don't make myself get too old too quick. But it was. So that first 30 minutes, it was a just awesome team of leaders. We were ready to go in 5 minutes. We had our gear, we know our job. We've been training for it. We know what we need to do. We talked about habitual training, how if you train, eventually you're going to rise to this level. Well, we were at that level. So all of us, so we knew, there was no hiccups. I equated it to, and when I do my public speaking, I do public speaking to corporations every once in a while. And I do enjoy that. Actually, it's very cathartic. But I always tell them, it was a team of leaders, because we shut up and did our jobs. Nobody was barking orders at the other one else. Everybody knew what we had to do. Everybody had their own responsibilities. We all had different jobs, and we all were doing them. And I said, man, I remember standing, and I remember getting my stuff done. I stood and I watched Roan, and I watched Tig, and I watched Jack do their thing. And it was like, I do like symphonies. I do. I like orchestras and music. I do. I like musicals. I do. But I do love symphonies. I do love Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin, and it equated me to that. I mean, that's what I thought. I thought I was watching a symphony. It was just gorgeous. It was beautiful, just watching guys just flow. And you're watching all the CIA Jason Bournes freak out, running everywhere, and these guys are just going with the flow. And it was like, wow. I mean, when I talk about it, it gives me chills, because it was so cool. It was like, wow, this is freaking awesome. I'm with the team of freaking A-listers right now, and in the distance, you can start to see the tracers, the bullets. God bless America that we have the advantage of night vision. At least we used to. I don't think we do anymore, especially after our really big screw up in Afghanistan with that pullout, we could do a whole nother podcast on that. That's just, but at that time we did. So our enemies use tracers. And if you don't know what a tracer is, it's a bullet that burns, because if you don't have night vision, when you're shooting at night, you need to still be able to adjust fire, because it's hard to shoot, because you can't see your sights very well. You can't see your iron sights, your fixed sights, and that bullet will burn. And so you can see where your rounds are going, and then you can move your barrel or your muzzle to where it needs to go. But the thing is, they don't fragment. They're a little bit harder. I don't know the chemistry of them, the makeup of them, but all I know is that they don't always fragment like a hollow tip round, which will fragment when it hits something. So they'll hit and they'll go straight up in the air, and you can see those with the naked eye, and it's pretty freaking awesome. It's cool. So the consulate was only about 3/4 of a mile, if that, by the crow flies from our annex. So we could see the firefight already, and we could hear it, and you're hearing the PKMs go off. You're hearing the AK-47s. Every once in a while, I'm hearing and that's a Dishka. That's a 50 cal. So we're like, holy crap, and it's hard to keep your wits about you, because being experienced like the team was, that every minute that goes by, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to get on that base, because Al-Qaeda is not dumb. They've been doing it for years. Ansar Sharia, which later became part of ISIS, those guys, they're not dumb. They've been fighting for years. They know what tactics work, and they do the same things we do. We know that they're going to get on there. Once they get on there, they're going to just ransack the place. They're going to find everybody they can. And then if they want it, they're going to lock it down, just like we would. They're going to put guns on all our avenues of approach. So it's going to be harder for us to get down roads. That's just what we would do. I don't like terrorists. I don't, but I have respect for them. Just like I think Vietnam guys would say they have respect for the Viet Cong, because they learn how to fight, and they are guerrilla fighters, and they're good at what they do. We're good at what we do, but they're good too. Yeah. So we just knew that like every minute that went by, it was like, oh, geez, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to get on that base. So, but it was cool, because for those, after that first 5 minutes, and we were told to not go, and then 15 minutes in, we were told to stand down by our chief. Your mindset starts to change to like, okay, we've been taking orders. We've been listening to what our superiors had to say, because that's what we do. That's what we're trained to do. But when you become senior like that, you've been through a lot of deployments. There is the decision that finally, I think being salty and being arrogant and having a little bit of ego, but also having experience, which gives you that ego, allows all of us to say, okay, now we're going to have to start takeover. They being the CIA personnel, obviously don't know what the hell they're doing, or there's something nefarious going on here, and they're not letting us go for some reason. there's people in trouble, and we're hearing the State Department guys now on our radios because we share the same radio frequency. So we're hearing them call us, GRS, where are you? You know, I remember Alec Henderson, who had barricaded himself in their Tactical Operations Center, calling us on the radio over and over, going, GRS, where the, excuse my language, but GRS, where the fuck are you? GRS, get the fuck over here. We are getting heavy fire. We are getting overrun. You need to get fucking here now. And it was, you know, it was, there was no lack of expletives in his calling us on the radio. And, you know, and that's, it's honestly feels, it's hurtful, and you feel a little bit ashamed because this is your job. This is what we do. We stayed to protect those guys, to help them, not just to protect them. They, you know, we figured they could take care of themselves too. They're trained, they're State Department security officers, but we knew that they were just going to be undermanned and outgunned because of the size of that compound and that target. And we had swore that we'd help them. We always had before. So it was a shot to our guts. It was a shot to our pride a lot. And it was also just, hey, there's human beings dying over there. There are Americans dying over there, and we're just sitting here. And you could just feel about 15 to 20 minutes in of us waiting. And that's an eternity in a firefight. That's a long ass time to be watching your buddies basically get killed. You could feel the energy from everybody just to finally go, all right, fuck you, agency. We're done. You know, we're through listening to you. We got to go. And that's where Roan says, hey, you know, I remember the movie did a great job showing where we all came together, and Roan said, hey man, Nona, you got to go. Because now we're going to be bucking orders. We're going off script now. Now we're not going to be following orders, which means that we're, you know, obviously we're probably going to get fired, which we all did. We all lost our security clearances. We all got fired. Go ahead.
Just gonna ask, at that moment though, did you even think about that? Like,
no.
Were you just like,
yeah. It goes through your head right quick. You know, you always think, I think anybody that, if you're able to keep your head about you, you do think of the repercussions. If you're able to control your adrenaline, which you need to, that's so important, controlling your adrenaline. The repercussions are there. I mean, yeah, you could die, but you accept it. So it's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. It was, okay, I know that. All right. But you don't think about it. You think about it once. Okay. Out. All right. Might lose our jobs. All right. Out of your head. All right. Not going to get any life insurance because we're going to be bucking orders. So our family's going to out of your head. So for me anyway, it was just, got it. You're still being, again, that's the beauty of the GRS guys, especially that night that we worked with it. Everybody was still very calculated. Nobody let their adrenaline overtake them. And you don't want that. Now, there are times when that maybe you want that guy that can run through that brick wall because he's not thinking of anything, you know. But in moments like that, where you really do need to think about what you're doing because you're so undermanned and you're going against you're going against opposing force that on paper, you really have no chance of defeating. Thinking is now your weapon. That's your weapon. The bullets, the guns, hey, those are just extensions, but this is what's going to win because now it's the chess game. And that was the beauty of that team I'll be honest with you, it was an anomaly. Not everybody on the team had that capability in other places I was at, but that team there did. They were very, very conscious, very, very, very knowledgeable. This would take a second. And it when I say a second, I mean like a split second, and think of something and then adjust off it. So it was a very smart team. I was probably the dumbest of them, but you know, I still had an experience. So I was able to be methodical and think. So yeah, you honestly, I did. And I think everybody there did as well, but it wasn't something that it was going to stop us from going. It was just, okay, got it. All right. It's just like a checklist, you know, got it. Okay. Yep. Still going. Let's go. And I think Roan did that too, because it makes sure that everybody's in that fight, and you can look in everybody's eyes and you're like, yeah, he's in, he's good to go. And it gives you that confidence that, all right, everybody's here. Everybody wants to go. We all know the consequences of our actions. Don't care. Let's go. And so honestly, it made everybody more confident. And I remember Roan saying, hey man, nobody's got to go, but this is we're all they got. And it was just dead silence, which was a good thing. It was like, all right, go get your shit. Let's go. And I remember the last call is about 30 minutes after the initial call to us. Now, the attack had been going on before that, but that was 30 minutes after we got called. Wow. And Alec Henderson, who was in the Tackle Operations Center there at the State Department compound, and he's barricaded himself in there. And he is watching his team get decimated. They're starting to light the buildings on fire. They're lighting the Land Cruisers. They're all on fire. They're all melting. He says, GRS, if you don't get here, we're all going to fucking die. And I remember Tyrone, SEAL Team 6 Tyrone, man, one of the guys that died that night on our team. He cracked his door and he went like this. He was in an armored sedan in front. I was driving the Land Cruiser in the back. It was a Land Cruiser. We portrayed it as a G5 in the movie. It was actually an armored Land Cruiser, but he was driving an actually armored Mercedes in the sedan. So he was driving a nice car, but he cracked his door and he went. And Ron was a big dude. The movie portrayed him accurately. He used to pull that damn tractor tire around. He was huge. Yeah. And yeah, so it was really awesome because all I saw, was this guy that looked like King Leonidas from 300. And that's what I saw. And I saw this huge arm coming out of the door, and it just inspired me even more. And I know it inspired everybody else. And I remember when he gave me that thumbs up, which means, hey, Tanto, you ready to go? I gave him a thumbs up through the front of my car window, the windshield, because, armored cars, you can't, level 7, the heavy armored cars, you can't roll down the windows. I just went like that. And we started to take off, and we did have one more hiccup before we took off. We needed one other person to go with us, and I'd almost forgotten him, but through the experiences that we had gone through in the years prior to Benghazi, I knew we needed an interpreter. I knew we needed somebody that spoke Arabic, because I've seen and experienced it myself, friendly fire with a foreign force because you just don't speak the same language. Being in countries that speak Pashto, Urdu, Arabic, what's another one? Farsi. You English and all those things don't always mesh, and some guys don't wear uniforms, and sometimes you draw down on a friendly, or they draw down on you, and you need to speak that. So the movie was spot on that. And that's why I always smile at that, because I remember Henry. We call him all in the movie. I remember Henry because he was adorable. He looked, he was pretty adorable in the movie. He was actually even more adorable in real life. For those that have older guys that have ever watched the Bob Newhart show, Bob Newhart's an old comedian, just an adorable looking comedian that we've had in America since I was growing up. He looked like Bob Newhart. So if all you guys out there, Google who Bob Newhart is, and you'll get why I think it's so adorable. But he looked like an Egyptian Bob Newhart. He looked dark, but he looked like that guy. So when I said, hey, dude, we need you, because we stopped the cars, because I still had to find. I said, hey, stop the cars. We still need to find Henry. I ran out, and I said, I do believe in God. I do believe in faith, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I thought I was going to have to waste another 30 minutes trying to find him on the compound, because he wouldn't answer his radio. And as soon as I jumped out of the car and I ran around the front of the hood, he's like right there. Like, whoa, and I did. I even looked up and I said, thank you. And I said, hey, dude, we need you. And, watch the movie. He did a good job. But he did look at me. He was scared shitless. His eyes were big as like a deer in headlights. And he goes, I go, dude, we need you. I don't speak Arabic, but none of us do speak it well enough. I don't want a blue on green incident, which is a friendly fire incident with the foreign force. I said, we need you, man. I said, I've been through this before. He goes, Tano, I'm not a combat terp. I'm not weapons qualified. And I have my Glock on my hip, and I handed it to him. I said, you are now, go get your stuff. And he grabbed it and ran back into building C. And initially I did think he wasn't coming back. So Boone had actually got out of the car, and he was leaning on the hood, looking at me going, and he's shaking his head back and forth. And I looked at him and I go, I just lost my pistol, didn't I? He's not coming back. So he's like, yep. But he did. He came right back. He had body armor on. He had a helmet. It was all too big for him. So he looked like a big turtle running back at us. it really, it made me smile. Like the smile you're seeing is what I was doing that night. I was smiling because first of all, I was in awe of his courage because he really had no business going with us, but he never questioned it. So I was in such awe with how courageous this little Bob Newhart guy was. But also he just looked again, he looked adorable. I mean, even in all that body armor, he looked like a little Egyptian turtle running at me. And it was like, man, this is awesome. So the experience of it all, and that's the beauty of being able to control your adrenaline, is all these things that you may not get. I'm experiencing them because I'm taking them all in, because everything is actually slowing down. It's not speeding up. You know, you have people, you talk to people that have been through incidents where like, hey, it seemed like, 30 minutes, it seemed like, or it seemed like things went quickly, or I wasn't paying attention. Honestly, things, I'm like, and all of us, I think, are the same way. And I think guys that have had a lot of experience in under duress will tell you the same thing. You're like a racehorse. And then when that happens, it's like the blinders come off and you can see everything and everything slows down. So I'm just, honestly, I'm enjoying this whole scene and watching it all and taking it all in. And that's why I think when I talk about it, I still go back and smile, because that's what I was doing that night. I was just smiling, going, wow, this is awesome. And it was, it really was. And I go back in a heartbeat. I would to that night, even knowing what I know now. But no, we got him in the car, and that's the first 30 minutes. I mean, that 30 minutes we shot down and we started to figure out how we were going to assault the compound to get in there and help everybody. And we had wasted 35 minutes. So honestly, it felt like a suicide mission. It really did. I don't think any of us said that. Even though we put it in the movie and said, yeah, this is turning into a suicide mission. We all felt that way, but what you gonna do? It's our job. So we got to at least try. You got to at least try. They're definitely going to die if we don't at least give it an attempt. But let's at least give it a shot and try. So
what you just said there is incredible, because that relates to like life in a way as well. And then when people, like, if you don't do it, you're gonna fail. So just do it, and if you fail, you know that you've already, you tried at least.
Yeah.
So
and you can learn from it, and you learn from the failure. And so if you ever are faced with that again, you're going to accomplish it. I think that's the hugest thing I learned from being a Ranger. And I think SEALs and Delta and SF and all that will tell you the same. Dude, all of us that have gone in special operations, we are the biggest screw ups in the world. We have failed so many times, but we've always picked ourselves back up and tried again and tried again and tried again. And we've learned from the failures or mistakes. That is what I think the biggest strength of anybody within the special operations community is that not that they do everything perfect. In fact, it's quite the opposite. we don't do a lot of things very well, at least in the beginning, but we always we always do an after action review. We always learn from it, so we don't make those mistakes again. And we do it sometimes, we learn from it in a setting that is kind of humiliating, because you have our peers around us. So you're learning from a situation that you screwed up on, and your peers are around you, and it's a little humiliating, but you're learning from that humiliation. And I think we're too soft on people nowadays. I think we get away from thinking, oh, humiliation is a bad thing. No, not necessarily. Humiliation and guilt can help you learn and get stronger just as much as accolades and attaboys. I think you need both, but that is one thing in the special operations community. And I think all of us will say that have made it to the levels that we wanted to make it, is that we failed all the time. But why we made it to the levels we were at is that every time we failed, we're like, okay, dust yourself off. What did we learn from this? All right, let's try again. Mm-hmm. And that's why when combat happens, it's like, okay, well, shit. Well, let's keep trying. And you don't stop trying until you either, die or you get maimed, that you can't keep fighting. But even my buddy Matt Waters, who was 2nd Ranger Battalion, who lost his leg during an RPG, they were assaulting. I wasn't on the op, guys. Maddie's a friend of mine, and we served together at 2nd Ranger Battalion. I had moved to contracting when he stayed at Ranger Battalion, but I like to tell the story because it epitomizes that. It's that he was on the front of the assault. He was the head team leader on the charge, and an RPG came and took off his leg. And he still kept fighting until he ran out of bullets, and his gun, actually the shrapnel from the RPG caused his gun to finally malfunction. And that's the only time why he couldn't get another mag in to keep fighting. But that's the thing. you never stop fighting until you just can't fight anymore because you physically are unable to, or you're just, and I know you've been punched in the head. I've had a few concussions myself. You're not thinking correctly that you can actually move. But you never stop. If you have the whereabouts to keep fighting, you do. And that's how all guys in the special operations community, and I know it's the same, especially within the SAS community, the Royal Marines, MI6, MI5. I know it is. And I've worked with those guys. And honestly, no knock in our special operations community itself and their vetting process, but the SAS vetting, the tryouts, they're no joke, man. So I know they don't quit because they're pushed to the limits just to try out for the teams, and they are top notch. I've worked with them; they're great guys.
Yeah.
No,
for sure, yeah. And I know that obviously the rest of the movie from that point on is crazy to watch, and I'm sure most of the listeners have watched it, or if they haven't, they should go and watch it right now.
Definitely.
Go and watch it right now. So we'll just skip past all of that because obviously the movie portrays that in a accurate way, like you mentioned.
Did a good job. No, they did a very good job. Like we talked about yesterday, we had a lot of input into it. So but I thought they got it excellent. I thought they did a great job.
How many times have you watched the movie?
You know what? I watch it. It's harder to watch today than it was when it first came out. I've probably, I've watched it at least 10, 15 times. I watch it once a year. I at least watch it once a year. But it's tough for me to watch. It's harder it's harder every year. It gets harder. And I think it's because, and there's some truth to this, that you do sometimes your brain maybe tries to forget things that it thinks are going to hurt you, even though you may not know it at the time. Your brain's going, yeah, you probably don't want to remember this right now. Let's wait for it. So every year I watch it, something else, I'll remember something else, some detail that maybe I had forgotten since the beginning. So, but the feelings are more, to me, the feelings get stronger. The feeling of running towards the fight. I don't think anybody can talk about sacrificing themselves unless you're really had the opportunity to sacrifice yourself for someone else. And that makes me cry. It does. It makes me cry. I'll watch any movie now. I'll be honest, any movie that has a person willing to sacrifice themselves for someone else, I feel it. It makes me a baby. I don't care. It does. It makes me cry now because it brings me back to that feeling of us sitting with Roan going, none of you have to go. I remember that whenever I hear it, it goes back to that time of that night before we left the gate, him going, hey, none of you have to go. That John 15:13 verse, of love is no greater than this, that a man lay down his life for his friend. Well, that's why we serve in the military. And that was epitomized that night. And I find myself blessed that I actually got to experience that actual verse. And I do find pride in that when the opportunity came, because there was other opportunities in my deployments, but they were always so quick. You really didn't have time to think about it. That night we actually had time to think about it, and we still went. And but I watch it. I do make myself watch it once a year. I want to watch it once a year because I do want to remember. I do want to feel those feelings. I do, even though some of them are painful. And I still want to feel them because it still makes me feel. It doesn't, even though I feel sad, it makes me feel good, and it makes you remember what humanity is. It makes you remember what sacrificing is, what people will do for others to protect others, and it makes you remember Ron and Bub. I mean, they're the heroes. Us guys that survived, we were there with them, but those guys were the ones that gave everything, and I want to watch it because they gave the ultimate sacrifice. They're the badasses, and it makes me proud to have served with both of them. And I watched both of them die. I was shooting over their heads when the mortars hit them. I mean, that is something that and I mean no disrespect to their families at all, but there are a lot of guys that have been through combat. There's a lot of guys that have lost lives or lost buddies. There's not many that have actually watched I mean, maybe it's on the same op. You've lost a teammate. You're on the same operation, but they were in a different part of a building or something. There's not many that actually watched. I mean, you literally watched their buddies die in front of their faces.